Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this presentation. My name is Joe Schmidt. I'm a Social Studies Specialist for Maine Department of Education. Today, I'm hosting the Maine State Library, and they're going to be talking about their online resources and be giving and sharing suggestions on how you might want to use their resources in our current age of digital or virtual or distance learning or offline learning. And so with that, I will turn it over to Jamie Ritter, the director of the Maine State Library.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much, Joe, for organizing this. My name is Jamie Ritter. I'm the state librarian. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm here today with three of my colleagues. We have Allison Maxell, who is the Director of Public Services here at the library. She oversees reference services among many other services. We have Kara Ryman, who is our our children's literacy consultant, and she is going to provide some input today. And then the gentleman doing most of the talking you'll meet in a minute is Jared Ledbetter, who's our technology specialist, and he oversees E-rate and Digital Maine Library oversight, as well as some other things, and Jared will be guiding us through. Let me just take a brief 2 minutes to kind of give an overview. We're obviously talking about online resources, and we are well aware, as I'm sure all of you, there are those without the ability to connect to the internet during this time. And while we're not here to talk about that today, and we know that solutions are being looked at and are in the works, one of the biggest things, though, that we do have input, the State Library and the Department of Education actually have input on, is the connectivity through the Maine School and Library Network. So if your school or if your public library is connected through MSLN, Network Maine manages that. And the guidance given to schools and libraries during this time who are on MSLN are to make their wireless capabilities available to the public. So that would mean a school either creating a guest network or taking down the password for access. And while not ideal by any circumstances, but encouraging people to go and sit in the parking lot and catch that Wi-Fi signal if they need to access needed resources. And I think all of us know, as parents or teachers, learning from a car isn't the best thing in the world, but we're in strange, crazy times. So just know that we're working with schools and libraries to kind of throw that signal as far as we can to make it accessible to folks that may not have internet yet. And we know that some hotspot and other technologies are being looked at to try to fill that need. But today we're here to talk about services that the Maine State Library is offering. Primary among them is the Digital Maine Library, which we'll get to. But prior to that, we are still doing our best to operate with staff from remote locations to offer those personal face-to-face services via virtual capabilities and telephone. I want Allison Maxell just to touch on our reference and research services that we are still doing at this time.
So hi, everybody. My name is Allison Maxell. I'm the Director of Public and Outreach Services. I know my colleagues later in this Zoom meeting are going to be talking more about the actual virtual resources, but I'm kind of excited to be able to tell you that we actually have people resources available to you. So while we're closed to the public in our building, we do have staff here working. We have 4 reference librarians that are available to you via email, telephone, chat, and we're setting them up with the Zoom capability as well. So some of the services that they might be able to provide, it's to help you with your individual reference questions and guidance with some of the resources that we have, but you can also schedule an individual appointment with them on a topic of your choice. And so we're going to try to maintain that as long as we can, whether it's on site here or telecommuting. So the best way to access some of that is still through our website. If you go to the Ask a Librarian page, you'll find how to connect. You can also still call our main number here at the library, 287-5600, and you'll get a menu of options that direct you to the services that you might need. So in addition to the reference services, I oversee our outreach services. So if you know of anybody that has any visual impairment or physical handicap, we are still able to provide our outreach services through our Talking Books program, which provides media and special our download library for those that have visual impairments. We also have our books by mail program, which is somewhat limited now because we can only request through our own collections, but we have been able to get some people signed up for that. So I just want to make sure that you are aware that we do have people available to you.
Great, thanks, Allison. And I posted our homepage website for folks. Now we're going to switch gears and talk about the Digital Maine Library. For those of you that remember Marvel, Digital Maine Library is sort of the new Marvel. And that came about 2 years ago when we did a sort of a rebranding of the resources, but also a new package of resources after we went through a big procurement process. And Joe was actually a part of that. Joe Schmidt was a part of that. But it's great to have him on that team. We put about $1.2 million into the resources that we have through the Digital Maine Library. And then they're also augmented by other repositories with great information. So linking out to the Maine Historical Society and some of their materials. Also another repository that the State Library has with a lot of information from the archives, as well as government documents. So I'm going to post the link to the Digital Maine Library. It's library.digitalmaine.org. And I'm going to turn it over to Jared Ledbetter, who is going to run with this and talk to you about authentication and the types of resources and really how to access those. So Jared, take it away.
Are you all able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. Let me bring up the shared screen. Are you all able to see the Digital Maine Library now? Are you all able to see the Digital Maine Library website?
Yep, you've got it up.
Okay, just checking. Hi, again, my name is Jared Ledbetter. I am a technology specialist for the Maine State Library. One of the things that I have been doing is basically sharing this wonderful resource with Maine's schools and libraries. There are a lot of really powerful tools contained within it. And over the past couple of years, we've really been focusing upon making it more accessible, making it easier to use, really more of a general purpose resource than ever before. One of the things that we encountered with the earlier versions of this resource were we had a number of hurdles. People would have to remember a lot of usernames or passwords. It was a very complex way of searching. It didn't really reflect the internet of today. It reflected more of the 1990s style internet where you had directories and whatnot to search. But we've since upgraded in the past couple of years, and I think we're really proud of everything that we're able to offer through it. And I know that a lot of teachers have been utilizing this resource pretty much from the get-go. So if you're familiar with this, great. I hope that I'm able to teach you maybe something a little new, but please do not hesitate to ask questions. I'd love to, again, just want to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered as best as possible through this. And when Cara Ryman and I will make sure that we have some opportunities to work with you if you have further questions outside the scope of this presentation. We are happy to work with you or other teachers that might have a need. So first, I'd like to reassure everyone, one of the greatest aspects of this Digital Maine Library is the ability to be accessed from home. The first thing that we really wanted to do is to lower the speed bump of accessing it from home, and that was one of our sort of step forwards in technology. We implemented something called geo-authentication, which looks at a person who is accessing. It looks at where they are, basically where they're getting their internet from. So throughout the state, this resource is accessible, and that's it. It only requires from those people who need to use the geo authentication, it requires that they share their location from their web browser. Now, for some some multi devices, that may be a hurdle because they're oftentimes set not to share that information. But we encourage you wherever possible for when using this resource to make sure that your browser is set to share locations. And I can show you how to do that or give further instructions on how to do that depending upon what browser you use. However, I want to reassure you that even if geo-authentication is not going to work for some reason, there are a few instances where students might be traveling out of state and they still need to use the resource. Then there is the ability to either use a library card number to authenticate and get in that fashion, or to even create an account specific for the Digital Maine Library. And then you'll be able to go ahead and sign in the old-fashioned, but we prefer the ability, we prefer the ability to geo-authenticate whenever possible. So that really is one of the best ways of using this resource, is just let it see your location. If it needs to, it will just pop up with a window asking to share your location. You click share my location and you're in.
Hey, Jared, this is Jamie. I'm just going to interrupt Jared because these are some late breaking developments. We're not sure if they are in place at the moment, but probably by the end of today, if not already, they will be. Everything Jared just mentioned is accurate, except with one addition. The way people will authenticate now, they're at home, they're in the Digital Maine Library, they go to click on resources, which we're going to demonstrate in a minute. The resource is going to look at the IP address that's provided from their internet service provider. And those IP addresses are assigned, and we know what states have what IP addresses. It's not a privacy or confidential thing in terms of that IP address. So it's going to look at the IP address first. If it's from a Maine internet service provider, it's going to let that person write in. They're not going to know the difference. But if there's a hang-up, if they're close to the New Hampshire border or the Canadian border, it may ask then to share their location, as Jared was talking about. And that's when the more specific geo-location authentication would step in. So I know we're getting into technical details, but the message is that the barriers to access are being eliminated so that when students click on a resource from home, they should get right in and not have to authenticate in any weird kind of way. Sorry to interrupt you, Jared.
No, not at all. That's actually, that was a point I wanted to make, that we are responding actively to the issues that we have seen. For most schools, your IP range was logged and added into our database. So from a school environment, you would never see this. Since we're outside the school environment in most cases, it's really defaults that home, look at their ISP, confirm that it's in Maine, and move you right on through. But like I said, there are two other ways of getting past that should you have any hurdles. And furthermore, I want to bring about just a note that you can easily gain assistance, which is using this tool, the Need Assistance tool, which is something that fills out a form that is sent to several people, including the person responsible for looking at IP addresses, our sort of resident Wizard of Oz, who makes sure that everything behind the curtain works well. And this is a good way of, if you're finding any sort of difficulty accessing resources, this is a good way of getting in touch with people who can help you get back on track. So that's one of the easy ways of getting assistance. It is emailed directly to us. So at home, we are receiving this. It's not coming it's being routed directly to the people who are best able to help. And that does include for students. So if students are having difficulty themselves, they are welcome to use that Need Assistance tool. I want to also point out that as search capabilities have improved, we've also made a real effort to link a person's needs, whatever they're searching for, as quickly with the available resources as we can. Right now within the Digital Maine Library, there are over 100 different resources. I'm just going to give you a very quick sort of example. There's dozens and dozens, and they're all listed here, but looking at 100 different resources is really not a valuable way of using a search engine. You want to be able to get to narrow it down really specifically to either the subject material or the audience, or in many cases, the resource type that you're looking for. And here's where we have promoted this, what's called Sift and Sort. What Sift and Sort is it allows us to tag different resources with a subject, with a resource type, with an audience, that then allows you to choose. Let's say you are teaching, let's say history. Clicking simply on history will narrow the number of resources down, in this case, just to 4. Basically the 4 most prominent resources that we feel will help you learn more about history. You or your students learn more about history. So we want to observe that was a very quick and easy way of narrowing the resources. I can then choose to select one of these resources and do some further research within that resource. I choose which one seems like it might be most pertinent to what I'm looking for, and I jump right in. Similarly, if I choose, for example, if I know that I'm focusing upon middle school students, I can choose middle school. You may wonder where we get the idea of where we got the tag of middle school. We actually asked middle school teachers to vet a number of these resources and tell us which of these do you think is going to be valuable in a middle school environment. And we narrowed them down specifically to those that we got feedback from, and from those teachers saying this is a good middle school resource. You'll in fact see in these resources, there's the tags that we have attached to each one. You might find it valuable to know that if you do use, for example, you use the middle school resource, the limiter the most, clicking simply on middle school here will bring you to a new website. You'll notice that the address has actually changed to automatically limit you to an audience of middle school. So that is a URL that I can use at any time to immediately bring up that audience middle school limitation. That will help if you want to create a resource specific for your classes, your resources, whatever you want. You can use any of these to do so. So for example, if you're more of a high school teacher, you can choose the teen and high school resource. And that's going to be a little bit more plentiful. But again, it's a link that we feel is going to be a great shortcut that you can deploy to your students on your web pages or whatnot, that even limits from that beginning page. Just as a for example, we realize that for the most part, when you're teaching a specific class, you're not going to want to have to go through this sift and sort every time. This will help you narrow down to exactly those resources that you will need, so that you're not going through that additional step. So it's a shortcut for getting to the best resources right from the get-go. I'll pause here and just see if there's any questions. And right now, I'm not seeing any in the chat. Okay, well, let's just go ahead and move on. I want to go ahead and start to show you about some of these resources. Let's actually talk about some of the resources that you might use most often. Let me show you academic Onefile. which for those of you who are familiar with the EBSCO resources, this is Gale's answer to Academic Premier, but it really does cover a lot of the same resources that we had before. I'm just going to go ahead and give you a quick demo as to what it looks like in here. So when you're doing a search, you have immediately a search bar right there, but I'd encourage you actually to pause and use the advanced search. And the reason that I encourage you to use the advanced search, and why I would encourage the people to use the advanced search from the get-go, is because it allows us to do a much more refined way of searching without having to start with just a basic keyword. I can cross-reference several different keywords right from the advanced search, and I can use them to either do a cross-reference using the Boolean term and, or you'll notice I can do a broader search using the word or I can be more exclusive, and if I'm finding that I'm getting a lot of results that I can identify a keyword that I don't want, I can use not. Furthermore, keyword is not the only thing that I can search against. I can search against a number of different things, including if you know that you're searching for a specific article within a specific publication, you can narrow it down by title. If you know that you want anything by a specific author, you can do full text right from the get, meaning in checking the full text option, you're getting articles that have the entirety of the article within the search result. So that prevents you from getting a lot of abstracts where you would have to go to the library or do interlibrary loan in order to receive that abstract. So I really encourage, especially for students who are doing research, full text will provide only those articles that are immediately available through the Digital Maine Library. Also, for high school students, especially high school students that are getting prepped for college, we really endorse using peer-reviewed journals because that is really going to be an identifier of the high watermark for academic credibility is the word that I'm looking for. So doing a peer-reviewed search for, again, for the high school students that are going to be moving on to a college or university setting, peer-reviewed journals will prepare them for the sorts of searches and the sorts of research that they're going to be doing in the years ahead. And like I had said before, you can actually choose date ranges, including between this year and this year, or if you want only those articles that have been published since 2019, you can do that. You have the ability to do some very powerful choices. You can choose if you want just bibliographies, you can do that. I don't want to get too into the weeds here. It is a very, very powerful tool to jump right into the advanced search. And let me just go ahead and, for example, why don't we go ahead and just talk about something that's on everyone's mind these days. Now, I've selected only those full text articles that come after 2019. And you'll note that I'm actually getting a fairly reasonable amount of academic journals and a number of news articles and a number of magazine articles. But these are all immediately going to give me full text. And let me just select one of them. So you'll notice that actually does include the full text of the article. Some further articles such as that people can explore if they want connecting articles. And for students that are doing research work, it immediately provides citations. So MLA citations, APA citations, Chicago 17th edition citations. These are all immediately selectable from the article itself. Okay. Any questions so far? Oh, okay. Heidi, thank you for showing it. We will talk about the Gale Pages here in a little bit. I want to show, actually I'll have Kara speak to that. I also talk about the Google integration, because I do know that a lot of schools use Google Classroom.
Hey,
I'll get to
Jared,
that in a bit.
this
Yeah.
is Jamie again. And again, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just mindful of time where with questions, we want to wrap up at 10:55. So knowing that a lot of students, let me kind of reframe this, knowing that a lot of students are at home and teachers might be giving assignments or asking them to do certain things, knowing that the students aren't going to be able to pick up the phone and call their teacher necessarily, how can we show some resources and ways that the student might interact, like resource type, if teachers say we want you to watch 5 videos or something, you know, resource type shows that we have videos as an example.
Let me go there and just demonstrate. Well, okay. There are a lot of online resources that have videos. It's more than just Niche Academy. I'll have to look into why that did what it did.
You might be in your K-12 page or something.
I might be in a weird audience. Let me just go ahead and restart that. But nope, I will say you can search against videos specifically, and I can prove that video. This is just we need to add the videos tag to a couple other things. But if they need ebooks, they need magazines, newspapers, all of that can be accessed through the resource type. Actually, why don't I turn it over to Kara so that she can talk about teacher resources and some of these areas. Kara, do you want to share the screen, or do you want me to just guide you?
I will go ahead and share my screen. I've got everything pulled up.
Go right ahead.
It needs you to get out of it first.
All right, I will stop sharing.
It wouldn't let me just steal it. Okay. All right. So I just want to highlight a few things that might be of great interest to you guys as educators. I'm here in the World Book Discover database, and this one, if you look at the explanation on the digital main page, it says that it's especially designed for people who are reading below level and things like that. However, I think it's just a great database overall for probably the younger school ages. A couple of things I wanted to pull out that I think are really cool is it's got this life skills section over here on the left-hand side, which highlights a lot of things that it's probably a good time for people to be doing some personal learning or connecting that to their schoolwork in some way. I especially liked the financial know-how section, where you can click on any of these things and it'll kind of walk you through their articles and things to look at some of that stuff. In addition, there's the World Book Explains videos, which are also there on the left-hand side. Sorry, I did that really quickly, but everything is on that left-hand side there for you to choose from. You can choose, it started right here in a general one, but I was looking at some yesterday for animals. Can groundhogs predict the weather? So there's all kinds of videos, and you can click on anything, and it does say download the video, but it does that really quickly, and then whatever video function you have on your computer will go ahead and play that. See if I can just bring it up really quick to show you. They're short, so they're definitely doable in little flashes. So Nick, there. So that's really easy. Back to the home page. One last thing that they have for educators, this section here, right off the bat, there's a how to use this site, but there's also curriculum correlations. And it here brings you to this search box where you can choose if, let's say, you're a 4th grade teacher and you're working on math. And it brings up all of the standards. And then each one has most of them, not all of them, but most of them have a link, materials correlated to this standard. And it pulls anything from World Book that would have to do with that standard. So, and then you can go right directly to them here. So that's World Book Discover. Any questions on that really quickly before we move on? there's a lot. You could spend a lot of time in here just looking at stuff and seeing what all resources they have. Okay. And then, whoops, not wrong way. So the Gale support, Jared mentioned Gale. They have a lot of great material here on their support page, which you can actually just get to straight from typing in the address there, but you can also get to it through any of the Gale products. I filtered it already to look at products one by one. And I was just going to scroll down to Kids Info Bits, which is another great resource, which will be updated soon to be even more friendly. So it gives you this product overview and a couple of things, but the stuff that you really want is down here at the bottom. All of these training materials, Kids Info Bits, they have a lesson plan that's all ready to go for you. This is all printable stuff that you can download. The scavenger hunt, I have it pulled up here. Oops, nope, that's not the scavenger hunt. That's something. So this is a scavenger hunt, and people can print these out at home, or you can download them and have them do it. You know, find this information on monarch butterflies.
Tara, is there a way to put the material onto Google Classroom?
I'm not super familiar with Google Classroom, but it downloads as a PDF, so you could put that anywhere that you can upload a PDF.
I think, Jared, you can speak to Google Classroom, yes?
Yeah, Gale is very strongly integrated with Google Classroom. In fact, with most of their resources, you will see the ability to integrate immediately with Google Drive. I recommend if you're doing research, sign in first, because then you can immediately start downloading articles, taking notes and placing highlights. All of that can go into your Google Drive immediately from the Gale resources. So anything that you want to upload, for example, as a PDF or whatnot, that can all just be imported right into the Google Drive.
That's awesome. Yeah, I learned something new today too. And then I just wanted to highlight a couple of more fun things during this time. Novelist Plus, there's also a K through 8 Plus if you're only working with younger folks, is a really great book resource. You can, on this left-hand side, filter by any of these genres and things that they have here. So if you are working with kids ages 9 to 12 and you want to look at animal stories, and then, oh, let's do stories about cats. And it's gonna, oh no. Whoops, let me add it up. No. But it'll bring you up a list of books. And then the other thing I want to show you is if you actually click on the title, you get some really good resources as well. So we're looking at cat books. Maybe.
Experiencing rural broadband issues.
So immediately on this left-hand side, you can narrow it by audience. So you can do that ages 9 to 12. I want only nonfiction books. And the date here, it's similar to the database that Jared was showing. I want books that are published in these kids' lifetime. So let's update our results. And that narrowed it down to at least 1,000 books. And you can go even further there if you want by subject, location, illustrations, if you only wanted lifelike pictures and things like that. And then one last thing in here is if you actually click on a specific book and get that out of the way, it gives you this read-alikes list here on the right-hand side, which is specifically great if you're using, if you're doing a unit on something in particular, or you have a book that you know that you want to use but want some extra options for kids. It gives you all of those that are similar. So that's Novelist really quickly. And the last thing is, which hopefully it hasn't logged me out either, but it's the Hobbies and Crafts website, which you can, I just picked Kids Crafts here, which I thought was something really good for right now, because you know, you're at home, you have what you have, and there may be things here that you can use to have a little fun and even connect them to different educational things. That's gonna take forever, but I already downloaded one. This is an example of, I just picked paper mache because that's sometimes things that you have at home, and it just gives you this whole PDF with instructions of how to do it, pictures and everything. So that's a really cool resource as well. And that's all I had specifically to share. So I'm gonna give the screen back. And
may I share my screen just for a minute? This is Jamie.
it's all yours.
So just to give an example here of Google Drive, and Jared said, so I signed in to Google Drive. If you can see up here along the top bar, if I wasn't signed in, it would just say sign in. So I went and did that before I did any sort of searching. And then I'm in the database, I'm in the resource Gale in Context for middle school students, but you could be in any of the Gale resources. And this is what the homepage looks like. I'm doing a project on government. I want to know how elections work. And I want a news article on elections. And this is the one I want. We pull this up. Here's the article. Right here is my Google Drive. So I click on this. Documents have been sent to Google Drive and will appear shortly. And I noticed the comment from someone else in the thread. They do go into their own folder in the drive, so they're organized very, very easily. So it's as easy as that to get resources that you find that you want to share with your students into Google Drive. So that's all I wanted to share, and I'll turn it back over to Jared. Why don't you take a few minutes, Jared, to wrap up, and then we could answer questions.
All right, let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay, I did also want to talk a little bit about Gale Pages. Gale Pages is a resource that you can use to, when you sign in, to be able to get access to a number of different resources, including the ability to customize your site. In order to do so, you will need to contact Gale in order to get a username or password. But Gale lets you create basically your very own refined site of resources that you want. Heidi, do you happen to have your link immediately available? I'd love to demonstrate what a good Gale Pages site looks like. And I know that Heidi is one that has really utilized her Gale Pages to the utmost. Let's just see if, oh yes, I'll also speak to Pronunciator here in a little bit. Actually, while that's happening, why don't we go ahead. And show you Pronunciator.
So Jared's going to show you a language learning program. That was a question that came up in chat. Go ahead, Jared.
Okay. So Pronunciator is one of our resources. It's very much like Mango language learning. It's just one of the alternative resources that we provide for people who need to, if you're teaching a different language. It's actually very refined. Let me go ahead and launch this. It gives you the ability to say, geez, I speak this language, but I'd really like to learn, I think, Indonesian. You have, let's try something that's a little bit more. Here we go, Spanish. Where is Spanish? A little bit further. So Mexican Spanish. It allows you, especially when you've actually created an account, it allows you to personalize a course that learns with you, and it helps you sort of it diagnoses what level you're at, and then starts to advance you from that point. So you can talk about, you know, any number of different categories, or if you'd rather not do a category based, you can do an occupation based, so that you're learning language that's really pertinent to the sorts of work that you are doing. Or if you don't want to approach it that way, you can just take a bunch of learning guides. They do a lot of drills and quizzes, so that you're able to sort of keep yourself tested. It's very heavily invested in giving you the auditory version of the language, so it's not just reading it, it's hearing how it is, how it's correctly pronounced. And it gives you a number of phrase books, so if you're ever intended to travel, not that this is the time to do so. But it's a great resource for teachers who are teaching languages to supplement their classes and give students the opportunity to sort of create their own curriculum that will match the student's own skill. And thank you, Heidi. You actually, I wanted to go back and show you the Gale Pages. If you don't mind.
While Jared's doing that, I'll follow up on Pronunciator. You notice he logged in through instant access, which is terrific. Students can create their own account for free. They would just register. And what that allows them to do is use an app that comes with Pronunciator, and really to tailor their learning and save their learning, that they could turn that back in to show a teacher that they've completed a certain module or something like that. So,
okay, so are you currently seeing the Freeport High School Gale Pages? This is Heidi from Freeport, who took the Gale Pages I was demonstrating a little earlier and used it to customize exactly what she wants her students to see. So it really has the focus upon the high school. It also uses Gale in context of opposing viewpoints. It immediately links people to World Book Advanced, Wikipedia, and Gale in Context College. All of these resources are really fantastic for that school. So being able to narrow down immediately where you want your students to go to is a great resource that you have the ability to fashion yourself. So I guess we're getting pretty close to the end. I wonder if there's any questions I haven't yet addressed. We've gone over Google. We've done a search. I want to reinforce that what Cara was talking about with like the different resources that are child-facing or basically student-facing. A lot of those will have, let me just give an example, educator resources that you can take just by going to the bottom here or looking for a link to educator resources, and gives you a tremendous amount of additional assistance, including tips, worksheets. If you ever wanted marketing materials that you needed to demonstrate why we're using these, you have that. In Google Classroom integration is a cheat sheet, or a cheat video, I should say, on how to integrate Gale tools with Google. Back to here. So there's a lot of available resources that they provide, including, let me get back to the support page. If you're here, you can also get training tools right within the Gale site. So if you need support for video tutorials or webinars, those are available for both teachers and students to review, so that you have an ability to broaden your knowledge of these resources, including, let me just see one other thing. Yeah, like I said, you need to sort of have your own ability to get into the Gale Pages, but that's very easy. We can get you in contact with Gale technical support. You can call to get access to Gale Pages. And once you have access, they give you a tremendous amount of other resources You get scavenger hunts. You get lesson, not courses, but lesson plans, and a tremendous amount of other materials that you can use to help supplement your existing coursework.
And it's all free. It's
all free.
Part of our contract with Gale.
And if you found that these resources weren't enough, the Gale support team is very happy to create new resources or engage in webinars with you based upon your need. You let them know what you have, what you need, and they will work with you to provide something that fits that need. They're constantly looking for feedback on their resources, and they've been very responsive, at least within the state of Maine, to engaging teachers and engaging us on how they can always be improving. So we're down to the last 10 minutes of the webinar. I'd love to have any questions about anything that you've seen, or if you have sort of any concerns or anything that you'd like to share with the broader audience, please do so in the chat. Or if you do have a microphone, we can actually start opening up the microphone if you'd like.
And I'm just going to add briefly, I mean, all of you as teachers know how to do your job better than me. But I have two kids, one in college, one's now a freshman in high school, but even through middle school, the best thing, given my role and knowing the resources available, it was music to my ears when my son would come home in middle school and now in high school and say, I'm using Gale in context, or I'm using Gale Onefile. So the more specific you can be with giving your students the resource that you want them to go to is terrific, because obviously put ourselves in student shoes, unless you're AP high school or really getting up there in your high school years, you go to the Digital Maine Library, it's overwhelming. So hopefully we've showed you some of the tools today where you can narrow down the resources that you want to provide to your students and really make that targeted. And now I'll stop talking.
And just to reinforce, if we haven't answered your questions or you encounter some issues, please use the Need Assistance link there to get some further assistance from us. Like I said, we're very responsive. We usually respond within the same day. Weekends sometimes are a little bit flakier than that, but any questions that you have that weren't answered today, we're happy to answer them. We're happy to address them with your school as a whole. If you find that there are a lot of teachers that are need to learn a little bit more about this, we can work with you as a group. But aside from that, I'd like to point out that Joe has put out the survey that you'll need in order to get your contact hour certificate. So please follow that link if that is something that you would like to have. Other than that, thank you to Heidi for sharing her Gale Pages. She's a teacher that I worked with fairly recently just to update her and her the librarians in her area on some of these resources. And thank you to Kara and for supplementing this, and thank you to Jamie for the opportunity.
Can I ask Jamie, Allison, Kara, Jared, I know that I put you guys on a time crunch. Is there a lot more things out there that you think are helpful for teachers to know?
We could probably do another hour if we wanted to get into the weeds.
Perfect. You read my mind. I will touch base with Jamie if that's okay with you, Jamie. We'll schedule a follow-up on this so everybody can be aware that we'll try to find another time slot for Digital Maine Library 2.0 version with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jamie put his email in the chat box. You've seen how to get a hold of them. I'm going to drop in just one more time the form. If you click on the form, it's going to ask you for an email and your name and the dates, and then a little bit of feedback information that the department's trying to gather about how you're accessing information, learning, stuff like that. The key part, if you need a contact hour for this, the last question on the survey is, did you complete the webinar? Did you finish the webinar? You have to hit yes, because I've built the Google form. If you get that answer correct, it's a quiz like you could do with your students. And if you get that answer correct, you will get a 100% and it will email you the certificate. Those who've seen the Zoom schedule know that I'm churning out a bunch of these back-to-back hours. And so I've had to go to this system because I can't build out the forms. So please, we'll leave that open for just another minute or two. I'm also going to drop in the chat box for those of you who would like to continue your learning. We will be joined in a different Zoom chat room, but today we will have the Maine State Museum is going to talk about their resources and how teachers can use that. So if you're interested by, I'll just need about 2 minutes to turn this one off, turn the next one on. But if you'd like to continue learning, there is the Zoom link. Then you can meet with the museum, the Maine State Museum. Thank you to Jamie, Allison, Cara, Jared for your time, efforts. It sounds like this is something we can do at 2.0. So I'm glad that everybody was able to join us. And is there any last comments from the State Library or questions from the group?
We appreciate your support and partnership, Joe. It's nice to be working with the department, and I'm glad we have the opportunity to come back to this group and others to talk about more resources.
And early on, there was a question about the recording. I'm going to stop the recording very quick.